The gloves are coming off between the states and the federal government on who has the right to collect the consumption tax, otherwise known as VAT, and how the collections should be shared. With Lagos State coming after Rivers in enacting its own VAT law, the battle is set to get a whole lot bigger. In the meantime, aside to the second quarter GDP reading of 5.01%, the quarterly data on diaspora remittances and trade deficit quite disappointing. Bringing some perspectives into these headlines for us on the show tonight is Professor Kenneth Ife. He's a development economist and he joins me now from our Abuja studios. Good evening to you, Prof. The VAT story is the big elephant in the room, the very hot water. So let's leave that very quickly for later. Let's talk about the trade deficit, which continues to widen with our imports beating exports. Do you have any new idea? Has there any new thinking out there on how we can rebalance this trade imbalance?
Well, I think it was worse last year, as you know, moving from minus $33 billion to converging now, coming in single digit. It couldn't get worse than what it was last year. Everybody knows that. Not only that the COVID affected the exports, it also even affected the internal capacity to produce. So we know that it couldn't be worse than that. But things are looking up. If you look at the balance of payment, there's a better performance there than what we have on trade. But don't forget that part of this trade thing is just what this importation of petrol is doing to us. Just can't go away, and figures keep. One moment it was 30 million liters, now it's 90-something million liters. So, and it hits us on two occasions. We are paying out to export it, we are paying for it to be processed, and we are paying for it to be reported. All of them are paid in dollars. So it's a major component of this.
You said things are getting better, but again, how do we ramp up on exports? Why we try to tame our appetite for imported petrol products?
Well, the action has to be two ways. You have to be demand management, forex demand management, and also boosting the export. The exports of solid minerals, the CBN has gone into that, waded in, looking to buy up some gold and some other minerals. So there are significant investment. If you look at the investment plan of the FMITI, that are coming heavy on manufacturing capacity. And if you look at quantitative intervention, fiscal monetary policy intervention, it was a lot of money. 1 trillion was laid out there for for manufacturers. And you know that the bulk of our forex is actually going to provide raw materials for this industry. So fundamentally, the challenge we have is that over 80% of our manufacturing capacity is built on imported raw materials and imported parts. So that's a very big structural deformity. But then we know that the current move is in backward integration and move to get more engagement on our 34 free trade zones and new special economic zones. And then also the linkages between the likes of our anchor borrowers program to export anchors and then having more expression of manufacturing capacity on the entire value chains. These are all going to just do one thing, that is improve export. NEPC is coming down heavy with the resources they have on 22 exportable items. And we have to do more, without a doubt. But the situation is reversing a little bit. Look at what rice was 2 years ago, and look at what the situation is now. And many more products are going to come on stream.
Okay, let's throw in the diaspora remittances, which fell sharply, about 24% in the first quarter of the year. How concerning should this be for the authorities?
Well, that's very significant, actually, because if you remember this time last year, there was a heavy drop from over $5 billion a quarter to 3.3 billion for a quarter. And then that triggered a massive response from CBN when it was asking the IMTOs to pay the money direct into the accounts, or domiciliary accounts of the senders. And then when they didn't, they pounced on them, closed their Naira account, and then also incentivized them to now have 4 or 5 Naira for each dollar. So I think that we need to do more in galvanizing the diaspora remittance. For example, when the diaspora bond was done, I was in the House of Assembly to hear the diaspora. A lot of the people from the diaspora were complaining that they didn't even have a look in when this bond was being raised. So if it is possible to raise $5 to $10 billion, targeting those remittances so that you can get more of their money into the system, and then of course you could see that some of them have gone invisible. Some of the remittances have gone invisible. So you're not tracking some of them. The remittances are taking place, but you're not tracking some of them. And the situation has improved. Why I'm surprised is that the economy has returned much more normal in many of the foreign countries. So there is more reason for them to send more money. And they are not tracking them. I think there's something to do with the level of tracking of these remittances.
Okay, let's talk about the wider implications. What does it really mean for you as a development economist looking at the face-off between Rivers State and the FIRS, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, on VAT collection and sharing? Today, Lagos State House of Assembly passed its own bill within a couple of days to also looking to be in charge of the VAT. What does it really reveal about the fundamental structural economic issues we have in the country?
It's going to work against free trade in the country because Nigeria is a single customs territory. And when we begin to behave as if we are now going to be 36 countries in one country by virtue of the challenge is going to pose, because don't forget that there is input VAT and there is output VAT. If products are made in Lagos, and then they charge the input. First of all, you begin from VAT collected by customs. How is that going to be appropriated? Then you come to the manufacturer that pays input VAT, and then when he was going to charge for output VAT, by virtue of the product going to Kanu or going to Port Harcourt or wherever else, then the Rivers State is going to be collecting the output VAT, whereas the input VAT was done in Lagos. So, how are they going to manage that situation? And then, of course, I think that what the fundamental challenge is not really who collects the money, but how the money is going to be appropriated and shared. So if there is a better dialogue on, in the end of the day, they have to collect it to a pool. Whoever collects this money sends it into a pool. And then there is a better understanding and dialogue about how they're going to share it. I think that is how we can keep it sensible, because otherwise it's just going to inhibit trade in a very big way, and it's going to affect input costs for many of the manufacturers who are going to be paying the input VAT, and they're not in a position to recoup that in their own territory. Are they going to have 34 factories working in 36 factories in 36 states? So that the goods leaving from Lagos seaport and then coming from Lagos to their branch will be charged VAT, and then they will, it's just going to be very clumsy and very messy. But the issue is this: people just want to have a better share of what they contribute. That's fine, but we have to contribute to a single point. This is the same thing as customs union. Like ECOWAS has implemented common external tariff. What is remaining is customs union, where all the territories, like in European Union, all the territories collect tax in their countries. They all come into a pool, and there is a formula for sharing those. And that formula recognizes the size of the various economies that input. So, that's how it works. And I think that should be the same case in VAT. And some states are just going to suffer because they wouldn't have either the VAT input or out. They'll have nothing.
So you think the conversation should be more around the sharing formula of the VAT collected by the FIRS as we presently have it?
Absolutely. But don't forget again that this is a constitutional matter. So the Supreme Court will have the last say. So if a high court has given judgment, it still has to go through appeal, and eventually it will be settled by the Supreme Court. But I think in the meantime, I don't really want to see this go on as it's either you or me. I think the federal government should get these guys together and they understand the principle that we have to, whoever collects this money is okay, but it got to go into a single pot. And then let us dialogue a bit more on how we share, that. It may be a two-tier method or three-tier method.
Thank you so much.
You know, where you look at the level of collection.
Thank you so much, Professor Kenneth Ife, development economist. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.